On a quiet autumn night in a small Wisconsin town, a teenage babysitter vanished from a home that should have been safe. Inside, the lights were on and the child was asleep, but scattered clues hinted at a struggle. Blood on the walls, footprints in the basement, and a trail that seemed to disappear into thin air left investigators grasping for answers. Welcome to Without a Trace. I'm your host, Jalyn. Every file holds a mystery. Every story deserves to be heard. This is Evelyn's story. Evelyn Hartley was born on November 21st, 1937 to Richard and Ethel Hartley. She was the youngest of 4 children. One of her older brothers died of polio several years prior to her disappearance. Evelyn was a sophomore at Central High School in La Crosse, Wisconsin. She was a straight-A student who was involved in many school activities as well as church activities where she played the piano and sang in the choir. On October 24, 1953, Evelyn had been hired by one of her father's coworkers, another professor of La Crosse State College, Viggo Rasmussen. She was hired to babysit their 20-month-old child while the parents attended a homecoming football game. That evening, Evelyn failed to call her parents to update them, as was usual when she was babysitting. After Evelyn failed to check in with her father, he went to the Rasmussens' home to look for her. When no one responded to his knock on the door, Richard's worry grew. He walked the perimeter of the house, searching for a way in. All of the windows in the house were locked, except a basement window in the back of the house. The screen for that window had been taken out and was leaning against the outside wall. A short stepladder was positioned at the window in the basement. It belonged to the Rasmussens, and they had been using it while painting the basement. 3 other windows had pry marks. There were footprints from a pair of sneakers in the basement window box and in the living room. Richard let himself in through the open window. He found the Rasmussens' toddler sleeping in a bedroom, but he couldn't find his daughter. The police found Evelyn's glasses and one of her shoes in the living room. Her other shoe was in the basement. In addition to the indications of forced entry, a significant amount of blood of Evelyn's type was found both inside the home near the basement window and outside in the yard. There were 2 pools of blood in the yard. There was a bloody handprint about 4 feet from the ground on the wall of a garage 100 feet from the Rasmussens' home, and stains on the home of a neighbor's house. Bloodhounds repeatedly followed a trail past these blood spots, and each time they stopped at a nearby street. This led police to theorize that Evelyn had been taken away in a vehicle. The Rasmussens' home was on the outskirts of the city, and there was considerable open ground nearby. Intense searches began near the home and covered an ever-widening area. As many as 2,000 searchers were involved in the first few days. Hunters were asked to stay alert when in the wooded areas, and farmers in the area were urged to search their properties for some sign of Evelyn. Pilots from the National Guard, Civil Air Patrol, and Air Force searched for anything suspicious, while boaters were organized to search the network of waterways around the city. Working on the theory that Evelyn had taken off in a vehicle, police set a hefty goal of searching the trunk and back seat of every car in the county. The plan was to have gas station attendants inspect each vehicle they encountered. Once gas station attendants found the car to be free of any blood stains or other suspicious signs, the vehicle would be given a sticker proclaiming, "My car is okay." Gas station attendants were to report to police the license plate numbers of cars they found to be suspicious. They were also told to report to police every time a driver refused the inspection. Police eventually searched cars being driven without one of the stickers. This goal would require some 40,000 cars to be inspected, but they were unsuccessful in completing this goal. One neighbor reported seeing a light-colored car circulating the neighborhood at approximately 8 p.m. Another local resident said they heard screams at about 7 p.m., but they assumed it was children playing. Authorities now believe it was Evelyn's abduction taking place. 2 days after her disappearance, a local man named Ed Hofer came forward to say that at about 7:15 p.m. that night, he almost hit a 2-toned green 1941 or 1942 Buick. He noticed 2 men and a girl inside the vehicle. One of the men was driving, and the other was sitting in the back seat with the girl who had been slumped forward with her head leaning against the front seat. Ed had seen the car's occupants a few minutes prior staggering down the street near where the blood was found. At the time, no one knew Evelyn was missing, so he didn't know the significance of what he was seeing. He assumed the three people were headed to the homecoming game just as he was. Several days after her disappearance, a pair of underwear and bra were found near an underpass on Highway 14, 2 miles south of La Crosse. They were stained with blood. A pair of men's pants were found along the same road 4 miles away. They too were stained with blood. A few days after, and a few miles further down the highway, about 12 miles southeast of La Crosse, a pair of battered tennis shoes were found. The shoes, a size 11, blood-stained Goodrich sneaker, had a sole pattern very similar to the footprints found near where Evelyn was last seen. The blood on the sneakers had the same blood type as Evelyn. Inside the shoes was a single strand of hair. The shoes became the most important piece of evidence in Evelyn's case. Authorities consulted the Goodrich Company and learned that the particular model of shoe was sold in Wisconsin, Iowa, Michigan, Minnesota, and Illinois. Based on the wear and tear of the shoes, investigators believed the owner worked with machinery. The shoes also had a distinctive pattern of wear on the soles, leading investigators to believe that the owner frequently operated a motorbike. Investigators were able to determine that 2 different people had worn the shoes and that the second wearer's feet were too big for them. Nearby the shoes was a well-worn, size 36, blue denim jacket with bloodstains on the front, back, and sleeves. The jacket also had some metal paint flecks on it, and it had a worn mark running the entire width of the jacket, possibly from a safety harness. Just like the shoes, the blood on the jacket was Evelyn's type. Additionally, the blood smears found at the Rasmussen's home were made by a cloth with the same characteristics of denim. Authorities believe the jacket was worn by Evelyn's kidnapper. However, the jacket appeared to be too small for a person big enough to wear size 11 shoes. Police were able to connect the shoes to the case and believe the trousers found not far from where the shoes were abandoned are also connected to the case. It is believed that the blood-stained undergarments belonged to Evelyn. Despite these vital pieces of evidence, authorities were no closer to finding Evelyn. Authorities continued searching for Evelyn by reopening recently dug graves throughout the county to make certain that Evelyn's body hadn't been disposed of by placing it atop a legitimate burial. Authorities believed that a younger man or men dragged Evelyn from the home where she was babysitting. This theory was supported by an eyewitness account of seeing a girl being dragged away in a dazed condition by 2 men. As a result, in May 1954, mass lie detector tests were conducted on all La Crosse area high school boys in an attempt to uncover more information about Evelyn's disappearance. Authorities planned to test 1,750 individuals, either students or faculty, all of whom took the test voluntarily and signed statements to that effect. The police were certain to gather that information. Students were called to a room in alphabetical order. Faculty who participated in the test reported no difficulties, and there was said to be complete cooperation by everyone involved. However, after 300 tests were administered, additional tests were halted. Throughout the course of the investigation, the Hartleys repeatedly appealed for anyone with knowledge on their daughter's whereabouts to come forward. What they received in return was 2 telephone calls in which a man offered to exchange information about Evelyn for $500 in cash. The Hartleys pretended to go along with the demand while they worked with police to set up a trap for the extortionist. The trap worked, and 20-year-old Jack Dufferin proved to have no knowledge at all of Evelyn and was arrested. Police also captured a 13-year-old who was influenced by Jack to participate in the crime. Police received hundreds of tips and questioned thousands of people, but the investigation has gone nowhere, and all we are left with are theories. Some people suspect Ed Gein, also known as the Butcher of Plainfield. They believe he may have been involved in Evelyn's case as he was visiting relatives in La Crosse, just blocks from the Rasmussens' home on the night Evelyn disappeared. In 1957, when police went to question him about a different disappearance, they found human remains all over his house. It was revealed that he had killed 2 women and had dug up the bodies of other women in the cemetery and mutilated their remains. Geen was declared insane and died in a mental institution in 1984. No trace of Evelyn was ever found on his property, and he denied any involvement in her case, though he has not been completely cleared. He is also being considered in the 1947 abduction of Georgia Weckler. Other suspects include a 15-year-old boy from Madison, Wisconsin. He had run away from home and was staying in La Crosse around the time Evelyn disappeared. He eventually returned home, but left again on the afternoon of October 24th, telling his mom he needed to pick up his clothing and would be back soon. When he didn't return, his mother reported him missing and also requested that he be arrested by police. The teenager was questioned by investigators, and he told authorities that he and Evelyn had dated for 6 months, the period of time that he had been gone from his home. Evelyn's father insisted that his daughter did not openly discuss having any romantic life, and he did not believe that she would have hidden such a thing from him. His only connection to the case was what he told police about his relationship with Evelyn. Police told reporters that there had been several prowlers in the area in the weeks before Evelyn's disappearance. One man, a 34-year-old La Crosse resident, was seen driving a 2-toned cream and green Chevy, similar to the one described by a witness seen leaving the Rasmussens' neighborhood with a girl believed to have been Evelyn. When he noticed the police, he fled, but was arrested around 2 a.m. on the night of Evelyn's disappearance. He was eventually cleared of any involvement in Evelyn's case. A 20-year-old Shelby man was arrested by city police for exposing himself to a young babysitter. On September 6, 1952, he pleaded guilty to a charge of disorderly conduct. The man was suspected of being involved in the abduction of Evelyn, but he had an alibi for the night she disappeared. Despite the massive search efforts, the physical evidence scattered across the highway, and the countless interviews and leads pursued, Evelyn's disappearance remains a mystery. Thank you for listening to Without a Trace. I hope you enjoyed our deep dive into Evelyn's disappearance. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe and follow Without a Trace on social media. And join me next week as I dive into another case.